Going live, and we're live. Aha! Hello, folks. How are you out there in YouTube land? Just popping on a little bit early to make sure everything's working okay. Checking we've got our precious fluids. Ooh, that's very blackcurranty. So, if anyone's out there in the meantime, say hello. We'll get started at 10 o'clock. And I'm just getting organised as always. Oh, sorry, 9 o'clock actually. There it is, 9 o'clock. A wee bit earlier this week. So I'll just take the time to say hello, everybody. Thanks very much for joining me. My name is Dr. Sloan. Welcome to my science fiction station. Tonight we're doing our Children of Dune book club, our ongoing mission to get through Frank Herbert's 6 Dune novels plus change. And tonight we're on chapter 55, which is a really good chapter. We've got a couple of short chapters ahead as well. Quite a few actually, by the looks of it. Pardon me. It's an interesting one, this one. It's an exciting one, and we have death of a couple of major characters. There's Carlos Cresselia saying, "What's up, Doc?" Greetings, Carlos. How are you doing? Thank you very much for joining us as always. How are you keeping, sir? Hope all is well. This is a good one, isn't it? I had a bit of a night last night. Oddly enough, I just quickly thought I'd show you this. God, who's made this? Is it Hachette Audio? I went to listen to this the other night, last night actually, in A.L.M. Banks's Accession. Pardon me, which is the culture book about all the ships, really, the mines. Interesting time, gang. Interesting times, gang. Sadly, I didn't realise I ended up carrying a stereo into my bedroom to listen to it. It's an MP3 CD, so it will not play. I have to listen to it on the computer. Sadly, that was a bit of a waste. It's very good though. I've listened to it before. So as you say, Carlos, that's what's up. But apart from that, actually, I've been, in honest answer to your question, I've been working away at the minute on some videos. I'm writing stuff at the minute. I've been at it for a wee bit, tidying and when I can get the time. So at the minute, and it's going to be Dune related. So I'm hoping to, pardon me. I'll not say when, just because I'm quite busy. But I've been working away. I'm quite pleased with what I've got done. So that's where I'm at, Carlos. There's Bojack Harkness saying hi all. Carlos is saying what's up, Bobo. Greetings and salutations, Bojack. How you doing? Hope you're keeping well. Yeah, goodness, but getting sort of into the swing of a few things. Trying to go and try and make a few changes with the station as well. Get a few things more done. Nothing that will interfere with the book club, but just hoping to start getting videos made again, hopefully. This is a good one, this chapter. I like this chapter. I've called it Muad'Dib Idaho, or you could call it the second death of Duncan Idaho, or you could call it 3 things not to say to a Fremen. I think it's quite an interesting chapter. And carrying on from the previous chapter, I suppose, with the meeting of Paul and Leto, and the baiting of Asan Tariq by Leto, which results in Asan Tariq's death. We've got something similar again in this chapter, a baiting of a character, a very obvious baiting. And I suppose we'll have to have a wee discussion about it, about how obvious it actually was, and whether really should Stilgar have fallen for it, but it's an interesting chapter, and even where we get a bit of violence within this, and again, this is maybe me, I find this, God help me, I find this chapter quite funny, in a couple of places, probably for the wrong reasons. Maybe we'll see if you share my sense of humor. Some little interesting touches to Frank's writing in this chapter, There's Cynthia saying, hi Doc, hi all. Hi Cynthia, how you doing? Thanks very much for joining us as always. Hope you're keeping well in regards to the family. Yeah, it's a good chapter, this one. The last one I thought was brilliant. But this one's again not nowhere near as long, but it's an interesting little thing, and we get a little bit of insight into, I suppose, the nature of Fremen guilt. Yeah, I suppose the current situation, we get a bit. This is the center of neutrality, if you like, within the current political situation that's going on. Bear with me a second, folks, did I get my glasses clean just before I popped on here? I probably did. In fact, I did them a wee second. We'll give them a quick shine here. Blah, 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 blah. I don't know what I saying. Welcome, my lady. Greetings and salutations. I always like the one, do you know this one? SYNP, I give you this much greeting. Well, that's an old sci-fi sort of reference. I wonder if you'll get it. I quite like that one. It's a good one to say goodbye with, if you know what I mean. I give you this much greeting. Bye. There we go. Sorry, right. Bear with me a second, folks. Table's a mess as always. Right. We got the book open. Before we get started, I'm going to have to look into this. But we were having a wee bit of a chat, Carlos, with thumb my nose. Thumb my nose. Is that one? Bite my thumb. What was the thing? Yes, we were having a bit of a chat last week about, Carlos had mentioned the point that, what's the point of evolution, and we were having a wee bit of a natter about the noosphere, or the noosphere, depending on how you want to pronounce it. And I've kind of been having a bit of a face palm moment, and really just wondering, it's far too close to noosphere, isn't it? It's one letter out, no technology, etc., etc. And I have a strong suspicion that, amongst many other things, whenever we get to God Emperor of Dune, that well, there you go. That's what I've kind of scribbled there, if you can see on my book. Are these things the same thing? I suppose in microcosm or something. I know what the noosphere is. Been a good number of years since I've got to God Emperor of Dune, so it just made me wonder, because it's far too close, isn't it, to be a coincidence? Noospheres and noospheres, something that will bear investigation whenever we come to the new technology, I suppose, in God Emperor of Dune, and the new gene, I suppose, which we were talking about as well. So it's just something that kind of has made me start, when we were having a wee bit of a natter about Pierre Teilhard de Chardin the other week, and his ideas of the noosphere and the omega point, this kind of thing, where this book focuses on evolution, etc. And it just made me start to think, I think there must be some connections there, just based on that. And I was kind of face palming a bit, if you know what I mean. Maybe it's nothing, maybe it's just a coincidence, Where's my copy of the book? There it is. I just put it aside. There's my paperweight. So let's get cracking, folks. I think this one will go hopefully quickly enough tonight, and hopefully we'll get some, because we've tried a couple of times, and things have gone on a bit. We'll try and get something read from this tonight as well. So I'll just plug that down there if we get through it quick enough. I'll stop putting it off because it's the right time. So if we don't get it done tonight, what I'll do is I'll drop on again before the next episode. We'll just give it a separate episode on its own, just to have a bit of a natter about the hero. But we should be able to fit it in, I think. So here's our epigraph. Fremen were the first humans to develop a conscious, unconscious symbology through which to experience the movements and relationships of their planetary system. They were the first people anywhere to express climate in terms of semi-mathematic language, whose written symbols embody and internalize the external relationships. The language itself was part of the system it described. Its written form carried the shape of what it described. The intimate local knowledge of what was available to support life was implicit in this development. One can measure the extent of this language system interaction by the fact that Fremen accepted themselves as foraging and browsing animals. And this is from the Story of Leto Kinds by Hark al-Ada. Pardon me. Right. Let's have a wee quick look. So it's about language, it's about systems, and the Fremen, and they're the first human group to do this. That they develop a conscious, unconscious symbology, okay, to experience movements, relationships of their planetary system. So we're told that they are able to express climate in terms of semi-mathematic language, and they have written symbols which embody and internalize the external relationships. The language itself is part of the system it described. Its written form carried the shape of what it described. The intimate local knowledge of what was available to support life was implicit in this development. One can measure to the extent of this language system interaction by the fact that Fremen accepted themselves as foraging and browsing animals. So they have a linguistic means of describing ecology, climate, this kind of thing, local weather systems, with linguistically, and that the language has some kind of form in its relationship to the systems that it expresses, I suppose. It kind of made me think of Egyptian hieroglyphics and stuff like that, various pictograms and stuff. Semi-mathematical. So there's written symbols and embody and internalize the external relationships. So relationships, system relationships, internal and external, a language that's part of the system, etc., etc. Its written form, not the verb, carries the shape of what it described. So imagine it's kind of pictorial, to be honest with you, in that sense. The intimate local knowledge of what was available to support life was implicit in this development. So the language is developed out of the life in the system, if you like. The final point there, one can measure the extent of this language system interaction by the fact that Fremen accepted themselves as foraging and browsing animals. So in that sense, I suppose if you're, the way you would design a system, you have internal and external entities, this kind of thing. You've all your different, your stores, your processes, and different ways that you can model this, etc. If you were talking about a sort of relational based system, like for example, somewhere in there, I suppose, the humans and their language that are part of that system, and this is very much, how would I put this? And this is an idea, as much as there's a lot of kind of system thinking here, there's also what I would call general semantics. Map is not the territory, this kind of thing. However, systems within, such as databases, for example, have data definition languages, data manipulation languages. Again, how AI is working, I suppose. So it's interesting what Frank's sort of talking here about, that the Fremen have a spoken and written language that, and the first humans to do so, that expresses, I suppose, within it, their planetary system. The language is part of it. How humans would be seen within that system, I suppose, is that they would be classified, is the way I look at it. And that if you were kind of, to classify human beings, we have a classification system for it, don't we? But very interesting, within their system, they see themselves as foraging and browsing animals. I kind of wondered why they wouldn't also be hunter-gatherers as well. And farming animals to an extent, I suppose, because the Fremen are farmers, aren't they? They farm moisture, they farm spice. But that's kind of what I got from that, the story of Leto Kinds. So it's a lot of systems talk here. And I suppose the language itself, part of the system it describes, very much that very much can be a part of computer systems, etc. So yeah, interestingly enough, I thought, yeah, animal, by the way, as well. That the Fremen see themselves as animals, and we've often talked about the Gom Jabbar test. The differentiation between, I suppose, perhaps within the Empire, of humans from animals within that test is an interesting thing, and never seems to quite make sense. But here's the Fremen identifying themselves as foraging and browsing animals. I thought there would be more categories to it than that, and that they were animal at the same time. Let me just check your comments here, folks. Julian Thompson said, hi all, forgive my shoddy attendance. Not to worry, Julian. I'm always glad people can make it. Carlos said, Heretics of Dune, we learned that the Harkonnens had developed a no chamber, but they apparently never did anything with it. It didn't make any sense to me. Oh, it could be a bad joke there, Carlos. Somebody said, do you think Leto Kynes is suggesting that the Fremen have done this on all previous planets of their long diaspora, or that they invented that when coming to Dune? Well, that's a good question. First humans to develop a conscious, let's see, relationship of their planetary system. Semi-mathematical. Sorry, bear with me. I think, I suppose, well, how I would go, let me see. So they say maybe not directly Kynes' view, but something associated with his legacy. The Fremen had done this on all previous planets of their longest, or that they invented that when coming to Dune. I think it's specific to Dune, was where I was going with it, because of the nature of, for example, how Shai Hulud is interwoven within their culture, how the worm is interwoven within their culture. And prior to that, I suppose one of the planets that they were on was Seleucia Secundus, which is meant to have been a hell world, but it's a prison planet, isn't it? So they've moved from planet to planet. The thing that we were talking about in the previous, hang on, back a couple of chapters, the way Frank drops these, let me see if I can find it. Yeah, chapter 53, our epigraph, have limits of survival are set by climate, those long drifts of change which a generation may fail to notice, and it's the extremes of climate which set the pattern. Only finite humans may observe climactic province fluctuations of annual weather, and occasionally may observe such things as, this is a colder year than I've ever known. Such things are sensible, but humans are seldom alerted to the shifting average through a great span of years. And it's precisely in this alerting that humans learn how to survive on any planet. They must learn climate. So it's possible maybe that the culmination of the language here is through the various things that they've learned migrating from world to world. They've picked up different things. But I think in this case it's the Fremen on Arrakis, and they've been there. We have to assume they've been there a long time, but they can't leave this place, can they? Or up until the advent of Muad'Dib's empire. That's the whole point, is their addiction to spice keeps them here. So I think that's partly to do with it. Movements and relationships of the planetary system. It's a small planet. They move around it a fair bit, don't they? Semi-mathematic language, written symbols. Again, their specialization, that they're masters at measurement, for example, with the water. Things. If you think of the things that we figure out about the Fremen from Dune, the first book, highly specialized, aren't they? Let's see, the language itself, part of the system it described. Yeah, I mean, the language, a lot of the things that we, the metaphors that the language that they use, I think, but I think in this case, I think it really is the language of Arrakis that we're talking about here, the Fremen's language here. And again, if we think about how much the worm, for example, is integrated into their lives, it's their god, it's their devil, it's their party drug. You know, it's their oracle, it's their form of transport, it's their a means of battle. The worm is so many different things to the Fremen. You know. Boom, 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 boom. Let's see. Hang on a second. Oh, I'm losing. I gotta go way back. Right. Hang on a second. Right. Where are we? Maybe Kynes view, but something associated with this legacy. This is the story of late Kynes is where we're getting this. So, first humans to develop a conscious unconscious symbology. It's possible is this what Kynes has picked up? Is this part of his story that we're being told by Hark-al-Nada? Julian saying Fremen feel their planet. Their language is expressed as an unconscious balance of motions. Very good. And Bojack saying all the more why Stilgar like the name Muad'Dib. They accepted themselves as foraging, browsing animals. Yes, indeed. The little kangaroo mouse, you know, wise in the ways of the desert. A teacher of boys, a tutor. Yeah. And that's, I mean, it is the nature, I suppose, of the immersion into Arrakis. Is a lot of it is linguistic for us as readers, but it's also the you know the picture that Frank paints of Fremen society. We're going to get a little bit of that within this, their morality as well. You know, all right. Fremen seem well. Constant, the Fremen seem the ultimate expression of humans as an ecological force. Yeah, I mean they're hardwired into their planet, really, aren't they? Constant, or perhaps factor would be more precise. Julian said internal circadian rhythms. Oh, don't talk to me about those. I ain't got one. The movements of mass bodies and gravitational pull. Our planet talks to us in language we don't have. Yeah, I mean, we have to assume it's something like that. You know, that they have the complete understanding of the world, if what we're being told here is true, and not for exaggeration or for propaganda. Aha. Remember who's writing this and when, I suppose. As the others always consider our historians here. But yeah, how we interpret the natural rhythms of the world, they're all around us, aren't they? I suppose we just have to kind of note and observe. Think about people in ancient cultures, I suppose, not having, you know, how well they observe the stars, things that we can hardly see anymore. There's Sootpot saying, do we know how long the Fremen have lived on Dune? That's a good question, Sootpot. Let me see. I think they're there for quite some time. There was something way back. I think we had a chat about this Sootpot way back in June. It was something to do with the botanical testing stations. But in terms of, I tend to think of it that they've been here kind of since the Butlerian Jihad. I think they've been on the planet for a long time. But I'm honestly not sure. I would have to investigate that. So they said, Carlos, if I remember correctly, in Heretics, the Harkonnen No Chamber had been lost, creators killed, their culture went backwards, and the tech was forgotten, or something like that. Supon saying, that's right, Leto allowed to detain the last of their funds, but also propaganda, no tech beyond Leto. So, no, I think it's a hell of a long time. I think the Fremen have been here. I suppose, you know, and to have control over the planet the way they have, you know, I think it's a fair amount of time. I said we've got several migrations for them over the years, but no, I don't think we have any sense of it. I think we have a complete list of all the planets that they've been on. Pardon me, I think we did that, but I'm not sure. But I reckon they've been here for thousands of years at least, you know. A long time. Yeah, I suppose we could do a wee bit of research into it. I suppose. I wonder if there's anything in the do you think on the Dune encyclopedia about it, etc. But I'm not too sure, to be honest with you. You know. To drain the last of their funds. Yes, yeah, the no chambers. It just got me. I know what they are essentially. And I'm trying to wonder, is that kind of line that up with that idea of the noosphere, you know? Just an aside, but no worries, soup pot. Yeah, no, it's here. Little things like that can send me off on a spiral, soup pot. They really could. Once you get a little problem, you know, it's all know how to deal with that. But yeah, I get the sense it's a long, long time. I if I remember correctly, the Fremen are on the. I think the Fremen are on the planet at the time of the botanical testing stations. And there's something about that, isn't it? That they're shut down quickly for some reason. Who knows? I don't know. Early days of Empire, I'm thinking, you know. Laughing out loud, I can't. But yeah, it's a good question. You know, I said, oh, you know, I wonder. But I generally think that the Fremen have been on the planet for thousands of years. It's certainly not hundreds. There's no way that their culture, I think, could develop like that quickly. Maybe it could actually, I suppose, but just in this universe, maybe not. You know, I suppose because you kind of wonder what. There's a great conversation that you could imagine in the history of the Fremen people, which would be at the point where someone, it's the person that suggests they all go to Arrakis and they finally got there. I suppose it's the point where someone realizes, you know, the conversation goes that, hey, we can't leave this planet. I'd like to, that would be a good thing to dramatize, that discussion of we're going to have to stay here no matter what. The melanges and everything, we've been breathing it, we've been drinking it, we've been eating it, we can't leave. There's an interesting moment in Fremen history. You know, better learn the language of the planet. Ditto here says but yes indeed. So there you go, foraging and browsing animals. I thought there would have been hunter-gatherers as well, and probably farmers if we wanted. I said maybe think of hieroglyphics, cave paintings, etc. Examples of ancient, I suppose, you know, drawings and writing systems that are, you know, a part and parcel of, you know, the region that they're invented in. You know, I said Egyptian hieroglyphics are something that I would think of in that case. You know. Okie dokie, folks, here we go. Cave Wahid, Stilgar said, bring coffee. He signalled with a raised hand to an aide who stood at one side near the single door to the austere rock-walled room where he had spent the wakeful night. This was the place where the old Fremen Naib usually took his Spartan breakfast, and it was almost breakfast time. But after such a night, he did not feel hungry. He stood stretching his muscles. Duncan Idaho sat on a low cushion near the door, trying to suppress a yawn. He had just realized that while they talked, he and Stilgar had gone through an entire night. Forgive me, Still, he said. I've kept you up all night. To stay awake all night adds a day to your life, Stilgar said, accepting the tray with coffee as it was passed in the door. I've got things to say about that. That's not, I wouldn't agree. All the nights I've gained, I suppose, I tend to lose days, I think is the way I think of it. He pushed a low bench in front of Idaho, placed the tray on it, and sat across from his guest. Both men wore the yellow robes of mourning, but Idaho's was a borrowed garment, worn because the people of Tabr had resented the Atreides green of his working uniform. There's an interesting shift in affairs, I suppose. So he's dressed in yellow, the color of mourning. They resent the Atreides green. Stilgar poured the dark brew from the fat copper. Oh, what's that word? Oh, sorry, bear with me a wee second. I've made a foofy with it. Hang on, number 6. Carafe. Ah, right, that's it. Hang on. That does not look like carafe at all. Bear with me. It looks like I've written giraffe. Sorry, apologies. That's horrendous. I'm my own handwriting's worst critic, by the way. The harshest critic, I suppose. Right, let's read that again. Stilgar poured the dark brew from the fat copper carafe, sipped first, and lifted his cup as a signal to Idaho, the ancient Fremen custom. It is safe. I have taken some of it. Pretty much. How does it go about it? Basically, he sips first. So that, yeah, from the same. Okay, yeah, same thing as cheers with your glasses, spilling a bit into each other's cup. This kind of thing. Hospitality. Open demonstration of no poison. This kind of thing. You're safe. Right. Carson, I know they were important and Solicus Secundus before Dune, at least thousands of years to that evolution into the desert environment. Yeah, I'll see if I can dig it out the next time. I have it in one of the notebooks. I think because we hit the mention of the final planet, so whenever we did that, we have a list of them somewhere in one of the notebooks. There's I think there's about 7 planets in total. Pardon me. I got to start. Once I get once we get this book finished, of course, we're going to have all these notebooks basically for covering the Children of Dune. Oh, sorry, the first great Dune trilogy. So I'm going to have to get some before we move on. And these notebooks have been really useful to us. I'm going to have to get some little sticky things and kind of pop them in. Just go around identifying a few things in them and make sure that they stay useful. Especially, I think the further down the Dune story that we get, I think we talked about it. I've started to call it Dune drift, trying to recall specific things and things like that. They're pretty useful. It looks like, by the way, folks, I'm not going to. I don't know. I may have to get another notebook before we get to the end of the book. This is volume 3 at the minute, so I've got. It's going to be a tight squeeze. I don't think I'm going to make it. Right, sorry, where were we? So yes, let's see if I've taken some of it, hospitality rules, etc. The coffee was Haraz's work, done just as Stilgar preferred it. The beans roasted to a rose brown, ground to a fine powder in a stone mortar while still hot, and boiled immediately. A pinch of melange added. There we go, we get the recipe for Haraz's coffee. Idaho inhaled the spice-rich aroma, sipped carefully but noisily. He still did not know if he had convinced Stilgar. His mentat faculties had begun to work sluggishly in the early hours of the morning, all of his computations confronted at last by the inescapable datum supplied in the message from Gurney Halleck. Alia had known about Leto. Sorry, she'd known. And Javid had to be a part of that knowing. Dear, oh dear, poor old Duncan here. So he's a bit knackered, basically, and in many ways, a bit like the previous chapter, I suppose, all of his data points have come because of the arrival of a message from Gurney Halleck, which basically clues him up as to what's been going on. And he's here to convince Stilgar to let him act, Fremen coffee must be excellent, but they must be hard to speak to. I feel for Duncan here. Oh, it was the last time I had some really. There's a Turkish restaurant not far from here, and I had some of the last time I was in it, which is a few years ago, I suppose. But the last time I was in it, I had one of their proper Turkish coffees because I quite like coffee, though I'm not into. I like proper coffee, if you know what I mean. And boy, was it! Oh, it was rough. It was really nice, but it was very, very rough, very, very strong. And it was yeah. I think one was enough. But yeah, I used to quite like nice big. I used to take a pinch of cinnamon in my coffee, just a pinch of cinnamon powder. which was nice. But I used to put cinnamon on all sorts of things. But that's kind of my taste buds as well. It's not a Dune thing. I've always liked cinnamon lozenges and things like that. And aniseed. Those kind of, I think most people either love them or hate them. I don't know. Yeah, there's so if I make it like that in Romania too. Yeah, it was good. I mean, they had a range of different traditional. Do you want to try this? Yeah, go on, let's go for it. And it was just, goodness me, it was black and dense and very, very powerful. And it woke me up. I was feeling sleepy. That's why I had it. Boy, did it wake me up. Kind of just brought my whole face up like that. But it was I don't know. It felt wrong as well at the same time, But yeah, I think there's a wee section. I must see if I can dig it out for you sometime. The book of science fiction list. It's kind of it's famously improbable things done under the influence of coffee. I think it is in science fiction novels. Things like your heroes had the hell kicked out of them. Quick cup of coffee. Aha! Save the universe. This kind of thing. More from an older time, I think. Coffee, I think, has always been the acceptable drug of science fiction. I have to watch how much coffee I drink. I think I just drink far too much. Right. Yeah, really. I think there's a lot of those coffees pot that I think they're very similar. I think if you got the Irish version of it, it would be made with peat. Something like that. So yeah, we're getting the sale of the coffee here, the spice-rich aroma, sipping carefully but noisily. Again, this kind of thing. The show, I suppose, that I accept your trust. This kind of thing. So he's found out that Alia's known about it all along, and that Javid had to be a part of it. So here we go. This is what the conversation goes. I must be freed of your restraints, Idaho said at last, taking up the arguments once more. So what are these restraints? We're about to find out. Stilgar stood his ground. The agreement of neutrality requires me to make hard judgments. Pardon me. Ghani is safe here. You and Irulan are safe here. But you may not send messages. Receive messages? Yes, but you may not send them. I've given my word. This is not the treatment usually accorded a guest and an old friend who has shared your dangers, Idaho said. Pardon me, knowing he'd used this argument before. So, pardon me, they're going over the same ground. They've been at this all night, basically, is what we've been informed. It seems to the point, I suppose, where Idaho has run out of fresh ideas. It's possibly the knowledge of what the message from Gurney has kind of done to him. It was probably just tired. He's sluggish. So he's running. He's reiterating the same arguments, I suppose, which is generally not good. And it's an attempt, I suppose. It's a little bit of an attempt to shame Stilgar. I'm your old buddy. We fought together. I'm a guest in your house. Hospitality, sacred rules ancient rules of hospitality. Stilgar put down his cup, setting it carefully into its place on the tray and keeping his attention on it as he spoke. We Fremen don't feel guilt for the same things that arouse such feelings in others, he said. He raised his attention to Idaho's face. Duncan's thoughts here are he must be made to take Ghani and flee this place, Idaho thought. He said, it was not my intention to raise a storm of guilt. Pardon me. I think that's exactly what his intention was. Not a storm of guilt, but, working on their relationship there to try and get what he wants. And what Duncan wants is for them to flee, basically. It was not my intention to raise a storm of guilt. I understand that, Stilgar said. I raise the question to impress upon you our Fremen attitude, because that is what we are dealing with. Fremen. Even Alia thinks Fremen. And the priests? Right, here we go. They're another matter, Stilgar said. I raise the question to impress upon you our Fremen attitude, because that is what we are dealing with. Fremen. Oh, here, I've written that out twice, haven't I? Hang on a second. Fremen. Bear with me a second. Whoops. Half a mo. Let me just double check that. I have written out that twice. Let's see. And the priests, they're another matter. Hang on a minute. And the priests, I raise the question. They're another matter. They want. Okay. I think there's a problem here. I haven't made a foo-foo at all. I have written it out the way it is in my book. I wonder if you can help me here, folks. This feels wrong. When I scribbled this down, initially I made notes, and the priests. So from and the priests, the first and the priests. It's page 368 on this one. This doesn't feel right. Right, that's immediately followed by they are another matter, Stilgar said. I raise the question to impress upon you our Fremen attitude, because that is what we are dealing with. Fremen. Even Alia thinks Fremen. Right. Now, I've got and the priests again, and they are another matter, Stilgar said again, followed by they want the people to swallow the grey wind of sin. So I'm thinking there's I think that I don't know, there's something wrong there. Tell you what, let me grab a quick. Bear with me a second, folks. Or maybe not. Maybe he's just rewritten exactly the same words, which is highly unlikely. Bear with me a second. I have a nosy at this. Pardon me. Right, go away, go away. Let's see. Oh. Yeah, I've just brought up my electronic copy here. They're another matter. They want the people to swallow. Hang on a minute. Right, let me see. I've got here, it was not my intention in this copy, bear with me a second, folks. It was not my intention to raise a storm of guilt. I understand that, right? Even Alia of Fremen and the priests. And then we go, they're another matter. What's going on here? I raised the question to praise. Storm of guilt, even Alia thinks Fremen and the priests. So right, that's another matter. I raised the question to I raised the question to impress upon you our Fremen attitude. That's not right. That's part of the previous. Oh, for goodness sake! Sorry, folks. This is a right mess here. Let me see. And I text Stilgar when it says I raised the question once. Stilgar says and the priests only once. Right, yeah. Let me see. I raised the question. Goodness me. This is not my fault, folks, at all. This is a complete mess. Even I thinks Fremen. Yeah, let me just see what's going on here. And the priests, There another matter, Stilgar said. Yeah, that's what I've got. I've got a whole section reprinted by the looks of it here. Here's the question. Yeah. Here's the question to impress. First time, even Alia. So I don't want to get right. Okay. Thanks, Fremen. Even Alia thinks Fremen and the priests. They are another matter. Right, I raised the question. Right, all of that from Stilgar. Right, okay, got it. All of that's gone. Right, okay, figured it out. Wow, okay, and the extra and the priests. Right. Okay, that's horrific. Bear with me a second, folks. I just fixed this here. So what we've got is a reprint of text. I've just written out as another paragraph, not having noticed within this bit here. So after and the priests, it should be what I've got is there another matter, Stilgar said, and then I raised the question. All of that's repeated. It get down again to and the priests. It shouldn't be there. So that's a repetition. It's a printing error. It's a big one. What have we got? 1, 2, 3, three extra lines missing. 3 whole extra lines. 4 lines there. And the priests. Right, there another matter, and then everything after. Right, there another matter. Stilgar said in my copy. Then everything after that. No, up until Stilgar said again. There's another there, another matter. Right, okay. Wow. Right, bear with me a second, folks. Sorry, this is horrific. I think it's Fremen and the priests. There another matter. What a total mess. Bloody hell. Another matter. Right. I raised the question. That's all repeated. Right. Got to get rid of this. Okay. There we go. Goodbye. Goodbye. Wow. Okay. Goodness gracious me. Reprint. Because I've actually even got this is the second time. I thought that. Wow. Okay. Right. Sorry, folks. I'm back. Apologies. Right. What a mess. Very confusing. Sorry, I've got it sorted. Apologies. I'm going to sort this out in my own book here too. All of that's bye-bye. Right. Right. That's how much has been repeated there within the text. I've had to make that make sense. Sorry about that. So that's within my copy. All of that's reprinted and slotted in. So apologies and thank you. Wow, that was confusing as hell. I'm going to go back and read that properly. I'll catch up with your comments actually, folks. Sorry, I got my head in there. Let me see. Real men chew the coffee. Carl said, real men chew the coffee beans and wash them down with boiling water. Julian saying, Duncan is always on a leash. Atreides, Bene Gesserit, whatever. He always wakes up in a new era with a new collar. I'm going to see somebody with a collar here tonight as well. Supot said, thanks, Cynthia. Cynthia said, in my text, Stilgar only says, I raised the question once. Stilgar says, and the priest only once. Yes, indeed. Thank you, Cynthia. To clarify it there, not there. Another matter, Stilgar said they want the people to swallow the grey wind. Yeah, okay, I've got it. So that's what's happened. Thank you very much, Cynthia. But we've got a publishing error here, quite a corker, where we have a whole section of a paragraph, and then Duncan's response and the priest, and the next line of Stilgar's dialogue repeated in our text here. So I'm going to dial it back, folks, and we'll run through it again just so it makes sense. But that's what's happened there. That was very confusing. Okay, I'll just go back to Duncan's thoughts here. He must be made to take Gani and flee this place, Idaho thought. He said, "It was not my intention to raise a storm of guilt." "I understand that," Stilgar said. "I raised the question to impress upon you our Fremen attitude, because that is what we are dealing with. Fremen. Even Alia thinks Fremen. And the priests? They are another matter," Stilgar said. "They want the people to swallow the grey wind of sin, taking that into the everlasting. This is a great blotch by which they seek to know their own piety." He spoke in a level voice, but Idaho heard the bitterness and wondered why that bitterness could not sway Stilgar. Pardon me. So that's the priest there. That makes a lot more sense there. There we go. By him asking, by having the text repeat that on the priest is kind of where it started rolling that with my copy. It made it seem that Stilgar had ignored him, that Idaho had to ask him again, and the fact that it was kind of shameful probably that these priests were Fremen. The one other thing I've written here just before all that madness happened there was that we're dealing with Fremen. Even Alia thinks Fremen. I've written next to that with a wee kind of arrow heading down. Does she? Is it the Baron doing her thinking? So this is to do with Fremen guilt, by the way. They don't feel guilt for the same things that arouse such feelings in others. It's also part of the language of their world, if you like, how they survive. Sorry, bear with me a second. So the priests are another matter. They want the people to swallow the grey wind of sin, taking that into the everlasting. This is a great blotch by which they seek to know their own piety. He's not happy with the priesthood at all there. So it's an old trick of autocratic rule, Idaho said. Alia knows it well. Good subjects must feel guilty. The guilt begins as a feeling of failure. The good autocrat provides many opportunities for failure in the populace. I've noticed, Stilgar spoke dryly, but you must forgive me if I mention to you once more that it is your wife of whom you speak. It is the sister of Muad'Dib. She's possessed, I tell you. Many say it. She will have to undergo the test one day. Meanwhile, there are other considerations more important. Idaho shook his head sadly. Everything I've told you can be verified. The communications with Jack Urutu was always through Alia's temple. The plot against the twins had accomplices there. Money for the sale of worms off planet goes there. All of the strings lead to Alia's office, to the Regency. Stilgar shook his head, drew in a deep breath. This is neutral territory. I've given my word. Things can't go on this way, Idaho protested. I agree, Stilgar nodded. Alia is caught inside the circle, and every day the circle grows smaller. It's like our old custom of having many wives. This pinpoints male sterility. He bent a questioning gaze on Idaho. You say she deceives you with other men, using her sex as a weapon, is the way you put it. Sorry, the way I believe you've expressed it. Then you have a perfectly legal avenue available to you. Javid's here in Tamar with messages from Alia. You have only to... On your neutral territory? No, bit outside in the desert, but outside in the desert. And if you took that opportunity to escape, you'll not be given such an opportunity. Still, I swear to you, Alia is possessed. What do I have to do to convince you of a difficult thing to prove? Stilgar said. It was the argument he'd used many times during the night. So again, we've got this repetition of argument that that they've been at this all night. The still, I swear to you, in my copy of the book has two L's, so it's like still. The word instead of I'm pretty sure that is Stilgar's name, the nickname Still. Yeah, because when we refer to Still in the book, he's STIL. So I've got an STI double L there. I swear to you, I think it's just the one. Should be just Still. I swear to you. Not, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. There. Now, let's have a look. So, the problem here, I suppose, we have this little discussion about guilt and autocratic rule and how it likes to inflict it upon its subjects. Interestingly enough, begins as a feeling of failure. The good autocrat provides many opportunities for failure in the populace. Stilgar has noticed this. Forgive me. Anyway, the whole point is it's your wife. So it's simply put, as much as as Stilgar reminds him once more, this is your wife of whom you're speaking. It's the sister of Muad'Dib. It results in this. She's possessed, I tell you. Many say it. So we're told that she'll have to undergo the test one day. You'd imagine it would be more important. But meanwhile, there are other considerations which are more important, we're told. The gist of it is it's because Idaho is Alia's husband. That this could be seen of a way of getting rid of your wife, basically, which will be pointed out, and that it could be perceived that he's ulterior motives, I suppose, in one way. So Idaho said everything you've been told can be verified. Three things: the communications with Jack Ruby are always through Alia's temple. Plot against the twins has accomplices there, and surely that I think Stilgar would know that they also had accomplices at Tabr, I think, didn't they? And the money for the sale of worms off planet goes there as well. All the strings lead to Alia's office. Again, Stilgar saying this is neutral territory. I've given my word. It's being reinforced. Things can't go on this way. I agree, Stilgar nodded. So Stilgar is giving him. I'll catch up with your comments in a wee section. Second, folks. Stilgar here is kind of trying to give him an out, and it's kind of a means of basically confronting his wife's paramour, if you like, his wife's lover, which is Javid. The suggestion is that you could kill this guy on his neutral territory, and Stilgar rather slyly goes, no, but out there in the desert, you could do it. The problem is he also won't let Duncan escape, which would be a means of him getting a message to Jessica. So Duncan can't leave, and he can't get a message out. He can receive messages, but effectively that's what it means to be under Stilgar's countenance at Sietch Tabr at this point. I swear to you, Alia is possessed. What do I have to do to... Pardon me. So on your neutral territory, no, but outside in the desert, and if you took that opportunity to escape, you'll not be given such an opportunity. Still, I swear to you, Alia is possessed. What do I have to do to convince you? A difficult thing to prove, Stilgar said. It was the argument he'd used many times during the night. And then Idaho recalled Jessica's words, saying, but you've ways of proving it. A way, yes, Stilgar said. Again, he shook his head. Painful, irrevocable. This is why I remind you about our attitude toward guilt. We can free ourselves from guilt, which might destroy us in everything except the trial of possession. For that, the tribunal, which is all of the people, accepts complete responsibility. You've done it before, haven't you? I'm sure the Reverend Mother didn't omit our history in her recital, Stilgar said. You well know we've done it before. Idaho responded to the irritation in Stilgar's voice. I wasn't trying to trap you in a falsehood. It's the long night of the questions with answers, Stilgar said. And now it's morning. I must be allowed to send a message to Jessica, Idaho said. That will be a message to Salusa, Stilgar said. I don't make evening promises. My word is meant to be kept. That is why Tabr's neutral territory, I will hold you in silence. I have pledged this for my entire household. Alia must be brought to your trial. Perhaps. First, we must find out if there are extenuating circumstances, a failure of authority, possibly, or even bad luck. It could be a case of that natural bad tendency which all humans share and not possession at all. I think there's a real bit of dramatic irony here, to say the least. And I suppose it depends on how much we pick up on it later. I think it's here in spades. Particularly pay attention, folks, to the phrase extenuating circumstances. We're going to get that one more time at the end. We could consider, just want you to think about this, I suppose. I'll check your comments now. At the end of the chapter, everything that's happened from perhaps Stilgar's viewpoint is possibly a failure of authority, bad luck, and a case of natural bad tendencies to which all humans share and not possession at all, and that any extenuating circumstances. That language will be there at the end of this chapter, and I think it's a wee bit of drama. So I find this chapter very funny, and I don't know if you share my opinion on it or not. Let's catch up with your comments. I've got a wild tickly nose, folks. Bear with me. I hope I don't start sneezing. Let's see. Boom, 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 boom. And the priests. Oh yeah, thanks. Right. Okay. Something to clarify there. Another match. Stilgar said they want the people as the small, the grey one. They said yes, we got that right. That's all sorted. That's where we're caught up to. So they said, Julian, good point regarding Idaho. In God Emperor, Idaho is seen as a symbol for an older, better morality, something the amoral, powerful would want to contain, control. My text has still, I swear to you. Oh, hasn't still out of 2 L's as well. There you go. Sometimes when I think it's something it's not, I tend to be quite bad at it. Thank you very much, Cynthia. Then that is correct. That's what I have as well. But I kind of mean to think of still, as in Stilgar, still, I swear to you, How is he referring? Hang on. Just wondering how he was referring to him elsewhere. Forgive me still, he said, I've kept you up all night. At the start of the chapter, is how he speaks to him, and it's still, S-T-I-L. I don't know. I kind of thought it was still, as in Stilgar. I swear to you, still, but maybe just still. I don't know. Still, I swear to you, Ali's possessed. This would work rhetorically on both levels for the listener. Yeah, Stilgar. I just always stills it with one L in my copies. Julian said, Cynthia, thanks for being so on point with the text. I don't always have it in front of me. I'll be honest with you. I'm a bit lazy at confronting other texts other than the one that I'm working with just towards the episode, because I've come to rely on you guys a bit for it. But I do have a Berkeley on digital. But that sometimes that's the thing. Like when I was writing out that section there, I didn't, because it's repeated again. And I'm writing out notes and copy, and sometimes I get up and go away. I wrote that all out again, and I thought that was my mistake, just being tired and having rewritten the same section twice. But there's some things that just absolutely catchy, and I don't think we would catch them if we didn't have people with multiple copies. It's great So yes, indeed, as Julian says, thanks for being so on point with the text, as always, Cynthia. I don't know how it's always in front of me. Yeah, it's great that you guys do this. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, genuinely. It's a big thing. Julian says, Alia's possession is always interesting. I'm reading The Burning of Bridget Cleary for class. Okay. And The Exorcist for fun. Demons, fairies, collective unconsciousness, and the void suchness. Yeah, I don't know if you caught it last week, Julian. The thing that Cynthia sent us a link to for Sherlock was the Demon of the Privy. I thought that was good stuff. Yeah, interesting. Burning of Bridget Cleary. I've not heard of it. There's Chaya says, Shalom, Shalom, Chaya. How you doing? Thank you very much for joining us as always. Good to see you. Hope you're well. Copy. Let me have a wee look. Is it that one? Burning of Bridget Cleary, a true story. Oh dear. Oh, for goodness sake. Is this one of our... I see Ireland all over this. The murder of Bridget Cleary. Boland, Irish woman who was murdered by her husband in 1895. Either immolated or her body was set on fire immediately after her death. Husband's stated motive was his belief that she'd been abducted by fairies and replaced with a changeling, which he then killed. The gruesome nature of the case prompted extensive press coverage, and the trial was closely followed by papers across Ireland. Changelings, yes, indeed. Rare for it to be a grown adult, isn't it? I suppose. I always thought changeling were generally with babies, this kind of thing. I suppose that's maybe not what I was thinking. That's an interesting one. Did the husband get away with it? Found guilty of manslaughter and did 20 years penal servitude. Spent 15 years in prison. Was released from Maryborough. Now Port Louis prison. Moved to Liverpool, from which he emigrated to Canada in the same year. There are folk in this country, Julian, who I'm sure you've been over here, that particularly out in the countryside and stuff. There are some folk who genuinely believe in the wee folk and the fairies and this kind of thing. And we have fairy mounds and fairy rings and stuff like that. And people would there's still people in this country who would fear the banshee and this kind of stuff. But yes, that's an old one, isn't it? That'll be an interesting book to read. Yeah, a changeling. Yeah. Sounds like an interesting book. Boy, hard to say. Nice you're here, Chaya. Glad you're well. I should put saying hello. Yeah, yes, indeed, Chaya. So we're just sort of a huge corker or big repeated section with the text, which kind of threw me a bit there. But we're progressing along. Now a little bit now about Fremen guilt. They don't feel that guilty. All right. But when it comes to the trial of possession, we get the sense that this is, maybe I'm jumping a bit ahead, that if it's something to do with someone like a mentat or a Bene Gesserit, I probably am jumping ahead a wee bit. The trial of possession that the tribunal that they hold is one such thing where all of the people, all the Fremen, assume complete responsibility for whatever happens there. So there's no personal guilt. I feel like it's a collective thing. Of course, we understand the way the guilt and the Fremen. Of course, they're vicious killers as well. This kind of thing, which again, they very little guilt. On that question, must be so. Yeah, Idaho's sense of desperation here. It must be brought to trial. And we talk about the extenuating circumstances there. And I said, I think we get a wee sense of dramatic irony there, that arguably all of these things are what's going to happen to Stilgar later on in this chapter. See if you agree. And well, as I said, keep a wee eye out for the phrase extenuating circumstances. I've got it in blue on my book here. up here again in the chapter. As I was just saying, I think this is a funny chapter. Maybe I'm wrong. Now, you don't want to be sure I'm not just the husband wronged, seeking others to execute his revenge, Idaho said. So there we go. This is the problem. This could be a cuckold husband basically looking for a bit of revenge and using this process to get it. So that's why they have to enter this process carefully. The thought has occurred to others, not to me, Stilgar said. He smiled to take the sting out of his words. We Fremen have our science of tradition, our hadith. When we fear a mentat or a reverend mother, I had jumped ahead of myself there, we revert to the hadith. It is said that the only fear we cannot correct is the fear of our mistakes. The Lady Jessica must be told, Idaho said. Gurney says, that message may not come from Gurney Halleck. It comes from no other. We Atreides have our ways of verifying messages. Still, won't you at least explore some of Jacurutu is no more, Stilgar said. It was destroyed many generations ago. He touched Idaho's sleeve. In any event, I cannot spare the fighting men. These are troubled times, the threat to the Quanet. You understand? He sat back. Now, when Alia, there is no more Alia, Idaho said. So you say. Stilgar took another sip of the coffee, replaced the cup. Let it rest there, friend, Idaho. Often there's no need to tear off an arm to remove a splinter. No. Again, the dramatic irony, I think, in this chapter is great. I think this chapter is hilarious. It's maybe me. I have a dark sense of humor. Again, there's no more Alia. The question of how much of Alia remains is an interesting one. Is there any more of her personality intact? Is it all the Baron? Idaho says there's no more of her. She's gone. So you say, says Stilgar. Stilgar took another sip of coffee, replaced the cup. Let it rest there, friend Idaho. Often there's no need to tear off an arm to remove a splinter. That's what's going to happen, I think. Pardon me. Now let's talk about Gallimard. There's no need. She has my countenance, my bond. No one can harm her here. And I've written, well, I actually, as I write my notes as I go, as I'm sure you know, that I've written next to that. He's a bit naive here, and then absolute. And then, of course, we get Idaho's thoughts saying exactly that right after, so I should have looked at the next line. But Idaho's thoughts here are literally, he cannot be that naive, Idaho thought. No one can harm her here. You need to be careful when you say things like that. Pardon me. No one. Polyphemus the Cyclops. Who poked out your eye? No one. Nobody. It was Odysseus going as Oitis, which means no one in Greek. In Latin, Captain Nemo, of course. Nemo is nobody, is the alias of Prince Dakar. You've got to be careful when you say no one can kill me, and walks somebody called no one. It's but it's I would be the sort of writer, if I wanted, I might run with something like that. I love those kind of conditional statements, if you like. Of course, it's possible that anybody can come to harm here. It's an absolute, isn't it? And Idaho's not too happy about it. It can't be that naive. Pardon me. And we have very much Stilgar, the bureaucrat here, I think, as the leader of Sietch Tabr, making difficult decisions, this kind of thing. I don't know. But Stilgar was rising to indicate that the interview was ended. So he's showing Stilgar's kind of got control over a certain amount of things here. Idaho, now this, we'll jump in here in a second, I suppose. Cannot be that naive. Idaho was rising to indicate, Stilgar was rising to indicate that the interview was ended. We get this shift here, right? Don't we? Just to show you my copy of the book, my notes will go boom, red. Quite a bit here. Red's my color of danger, violence, etc. That kind of stuff. Now, so the negotiation's not gone well. All he wants to do is send a message to Jessica explaining the situation, that I suppose the message has been compromised, that Alia knows more than she thinks. And that Alia needs to be, I suppose, put under the test for possession. Stilgar's not quite really prepared to do that because it's not yet anyway. It's not hugely important, he thinks, and mainly because it could be seen as that you're a cuckolded husband trying to have me take revenge on your wife, by proxy for you. So these are the reasons. There's no need. She's my countenance, my band. No one can harm her here. Stilgar's being naive. So here we go. Stilgar is rising to indicate the interview has ended. Idaho levered himself to his feet, feeling the stiffness in his knees. His calves felt numb. As Idaho stood, an aide entered and stood aside. Javid came into the room behind him. Idaho turned. Stilgar stood 4 paces away. Without hesitation, Idaho drew his knife in one swift motion and drove its point into the breast of the unsuspecting Javid. The man staggered backward, pulling himself off the knife. He turned, fell onto his face, his legs kicked, and he was dead. That was to silence the gossip, Idaho said. The aide stood with drawn knife, undecided how to react. Idaho had already sheathed his own knife, leaving a trace of blood on the edge of his yellow robes. "You have defiled my honor," Stilgar cried. "This is neutral. Shut up!" Now, just before we get into this, I've got at the top of this, we've got the 3 deadliest insults to a Fremen. And as always, we've got our little skull. There he is. Rest in peace, Javid, killed by Duncan Idaho's knife. Violation of, and I've got next that, violation of hospitality and sanctuary. That's a very quick, it's just over and done, isn't it? It's very well done in here. And just as we're sitting with this negotiation, stand up, doors open, down. Very quick, very deadly. And Stilgar is not happy. So just to say, we've got our 3 deadliest things you can say to a Fremen coming up. Here's number 1. So, Stilgar, you have defiled my honor, Stilgar cried. This is neutral. Shut up. Idaho glared at the shocked Naib. You wear a collar, Stilgar. It was one of the 3 most deadly insults which could be directed at a Fremen. Stilgar's face went pale. You are a servant, Idaho said. You've sold Fremen for their water. This was the 2nd most deadly insult, the one which had destroyed the original Jacurutu. Stilgar ground his teeth, put a hand on his crysknife. The aide stepped back away from the body in the doorway. Turning his back on the Naib, Idaho stepped into the door, taking the narrow opening beside Javid's body, and speaking without turning, delivered the 3rd insult. You have no immortality, Stilgar. None of your descendants carry your blood. Where do you go now, mentat? Stilgar called as Idaho continued leaving the room. Stilgar's voice was as cold as a wind from the poles. Oh, that's my bad handwriting again. The poles, yes indeed. To find Jacurutu, Idaho said, still not turning. Stilgar drew his knife. Perhaps I can help you. Idaho was at the outer lip of the passage now. Without stopping, he said, If you'd help me with your knife, water thief, please do it in my back. That's the fitting way for one who wears the collar of a demon. With 2 leaping strides, Stilgar crossed the room, stepped on Javid's body, and caught Idaho in the outer passage. One gnarled hand jerked Idaho around and to a stop. Stilgar confronted Idaho with bared teeth and a drawn knife. Such was his rage that Stilgar did not even see the curious smile on Idaho's face. "Draw your knife, mentat scum!" Stilgar roared. Idaho laughed. He cuffed Stilgar sharply. Left hand, right hand, two stinging slaps to the head. With an incoherent screech, Stilgar drove his knife into Idaho's abdomen, striking upward through the diaphragm into the heart. Idaho sagged onto the blade, grinned up at Stilgar, whose rage dissolved in sudden icy shock. "Two deaths for the Atreides," Idaho husked. "The second for no better reason than the first." He lurched sideways, collapsed to the stone floor on his face. Blood spread out from his wound. Right, and there we go. And I've given him a metallized skull. There we go. And this is, as you can see, our second skull for Duncan Idaho. I've put Duncan Idaho number 2, or hate, rest in peace. Killed by a Stilgar, stabbed in the heart. Second death. There. Wow. And that pointed things get out of hand real quick there. It's what me and my wife would say, just things snowball. I found that hysterical. And it shouldn't be. I don't know. There's a bit more to it to go yet with I suppose the dramatic irony that's coming. But part of me, I really like the writing here. I really enjoyed the interaction. The way, obviously, that we have Duncan recalling Jessica's words from previously, and it takes a shift here because he can't get what he wants. Bear with me if I can just remind you of this. Let's see, where is the last time we saw Jessica? Yes. So the very last words of chapter 51, between who's this? Between this is Gurney's thoughts here, isn't it? Hang on a second. Gurney's thoughts. "I never did like her plan for the boy, and I'll tell her so if I see her. Because if Namri spoke the truth, the most dangerous alternative plan went into effect. Alia wouldn't let him live long enough if she caught him, but there was always Stilgar, a good Fremen with good Fremen superstitions." Yeah, Jessica had explained. This is the thing that's just happened. There's a very thin layer of civilized behavior over Stilgar's original nature, and here's how you take that layer off him. Jessica's pointed it out to Gurney before. It looks like it's probably been pointed out to Duncan. But he's gone to town here, or possibly it's just simply he's done some sort of mentat computation. How do I get what I want here? Well, at the cost of my life, okay. It will destroy Stilgar's neutrality. It will force him to flee, and it'll probably force him to communicate with Jessica as well. All sorts of things will happen if I give my life for it. So how do we get that to happen? 3 of the worst insults you can give to a Fremen. Number 1, you wear a collar. You're a slave. Number 2, you're a servant, and you've sold Fremen for their water. We're also told that this is the insult that destroyed the original Jacurutu. Again, related to slavery, murder. Third one, the third insult, no immortality. Stilgar, none of your descendants carry your blood. Like you're the last of your genetic line, that kind of thing. You have no immortality. It's interesting, I suppose, that when we get the insult here in relation to no immortality, there's the use of the word Spartan to describe this place. I don't know if you know the Spartan insult, which is "may you live forever, may you be immortal." It's kind of the opposite of that, isn't it? You have, yeah, you're just none of your, the insult is towards his genes, his line. No, none of your descendants carry your blood. You have no immortality. So the first one is in relation to being a slave, a collar. Second one's being a servant who sells other Fremen for their water. The third one is to have no descendants carry your blood. These are the three really, really deadly insults that you can give to a Fremen. It seems that they're not quite enough because still Duncan has to add a couple. I think he calls him, because we have another one really, is he calls him a water thief. If you'd help me with your knife, water thief. So that's an insult number 4, really. Please do it in my back. That's the fitting way. I think that's also an insult. Stab me in the back, like the coward you are, this kind of thing, which is the reason why Stilgar spins him around with 2 leaping strides. Sorry, there's one more. Sorry, yeah, that's the fitting way. Sorry, for one who wears the collar of a demon. So another reference to the collar, which is really bad, and of a demon. So it's not just that these are the 3 worst insults. Idaho piles on top of it a bit, doesn't he? He adds it. He goes for a little pièce de resistance. But hence, whenever Stilgar strides across the room, I like the little touch that he steps on Javid's body. Squish. Caught Idaho in the outer passage. One gnarled hand jerked Idaho around until a stop, so he's not going to stab him in the back. Stilgar confronted Idaho with bared teeth and a drawn knife. Such was his rage. Stilgar did not even see the curious smile on Idaho's face. You'll have to forgive me, but draw your knife, mentat, scum. I love the word scum with an exclamation mark. It's one of my favorite things to say. It's good fun. And tops it off with laughing at him and then smacking him. I suppose the point is, it's and that's the thin veneer of the civilized Stilgar gone that we read about, and here he is. Here's the dangerous creature that he is, and he very quickly kills Duncan Idaho. The only thing I would say is that in relation to it, it seems very easy, and we have to assume that those are cultural insults, aren't they? I don't know. I've been culturally insulted, if you like. I've had the full gamut of the ones about Irish people thrown at me, and none of them would ever bother me that much. They're all quite weak and kind of funny, to be honest with you. Oh dear. Third has cock just like cuckold, very good super. Yes. Let me catch up with your comments, folks. But I was going to say I thought that I have quite a lot of respect for Stilgar's character as a character. I thought he was very easily baited here. I kind of thought that he would be wiser than that, and that he would know better. But there's a huge cultural element to those insults, isn't there? I don't know. But yeah, it just seemed like this person's so obviously trying to get you to bait them and kill them. Don't do what they want. That's kind of where I would go with it. But he's in a state of rage. He's not thinking. And basically, Idaho commits suicide by Stilgar here, doesn't he? Haneth means the law or religion in Hebrew. Yes, indeed. I didn't cover that one there just because we've had it a few times actually. That's the thing with words. Sometimes I kind of try and remember, have we covered it before? Carlos said, I find it funny that aside from the Orange Catholic Bible, Judaism is the only religion to survive into the future. Well, well, it's not, is it? But we're not there yet, Carlos. There is more. But yeah, and of course, the Orange Catholic Bible is that kind of hybridization of it. Judaism's got a slightly different, I suppose, position within the Dune universe, doesn't it? whenever we get to is it the character of Rebecca, if I recall correctly, in the Wild Reverend Mothers? It's the Wild Reverend Mother of the Jews, isn't that it? But the Orange Catholic Bible seems to be really where they've dumped everything into it, haven't they? There's large elements of Protestantism, Catholicism, we've got Islam's in there too as well, and Buddhism, But yes, no, we do have we've got more than that, and there is. If you look at Carlos, have a look at the. There are other religions that have survived. Have a wee look at the appendix of Dune, the terminology of the Imperium. If you have a wee look through it, you will find some of that stuff there. Oh, let's go to the last chapter. Excellent. Matar italicized in Hebrew, its type of rain, as water is a cognate metaphorical for physicality in general, and root word for the word matter in English. I think I went with something like rain, didn't I? I think Torah is eternal, Carlos. There we go. The third, Sitpot saying the third, that's the third insult, yes. Where you have no immortality, Stilgar. None of your descendants carry your blood, has cuckold overtones. The Fremen religion outlasts the CEL. I suppose the Orange Catholic Bible, really, if you have a look at it, particularly I'm having a that of a Chaya, in particular about a couple of stories from the Jewish Old Testament. If you take a section from the Bible, for example, when I'm trying to find a quote, it's usually not too difficult to find. I'll just pop it in, and usually pretty much it's what Frank has taken in terms of religious quotes are very similar to the real thing. He's probably changed like a word from water to land, that kind of thing. Land the sand. That's about the extent of it. He doesn't do too much mucking around with it. But you can. So I suppose then the point I'm trying to make is when you get all these different versions of all these different translations, these different Christian Bibles, and how the same single passage can be re-represented, and the variation in language within it is interesting. But the fact for me is that it's things like the Torah is where the original stories are. For me, all of these are cut. Every single one of them is censored and edited, which is annoying, I think. But that's what I would say. I've got to get myself a copy on the Jewish Old Testament, and because their stories are better. It's as simple as that, And I said that particularly that's my kind of thing: myths and stories and ancient stories and stuff. And there's an element that it's what's removed is huge, is very important, is very vital, I think, to these stories, It's been done within the classical world, by the way, as well. Certain types of censorship and things like that. Aesop's Fables is one. I think it's quite tricky to get. I must say, if my copy's not complete, I have an old Penguin Classic one, but I think coming from some French translations and stuff about 100 years ago or something like that, they're heavily censored. A whole bunch of them were thrown out. not suitable. I think people often encounter Aesop's Fables, for example, and expect them to be morals. They're not. But yes, indeed. Cuckold, the Fremen religion outlasts the CEL. Insults, Carlos Cosessa, insults are largely shaped by society. In English, insults are direct attack upon you. In Spanish, they're largely directed at your mother. Yeah, I mean, this kind of provocation is not too difficult to do in this country. I'd say if you started talking about people's mothers in this country, that would get you hit pretty quick. But there's other things, But we have the racial ones too. I haven't got the last time I think I was called something like that. I think I've been called a Mick a few times and a Paddy a few times, but the favorite one that made me laugh just was a potato eater. And I said, what are you trying to insult me by calling me a potato eater? I think I pointed out the person at the time says we call them spuds, mate. But that would be kind of sort of weird racial epithets, kind of racial, not racial. What do you call it? Ethnic epithets thrown at the Irish, for example, Northern Irish. There's a whole bunch of others that are quite unsavory, you know. But they're, they're funny, I suppose. How you use words, isn't it? And sometimes but insults. I like insults to be colourful. I'm very much love metaphorical insults. I don't often. So I don't know. I've gotten a bit sweary lately. I'll try my best. Javid was saying, actually, for prophecy to remain unfulfilled that many years into the future is against Judaism's teaching. History isn't scheduled to last that long in Judaism. I think Christianity is kind of thinking it's going to happen around now as well. Yeah. Future events. I don't know. It's interesting. Now, hang on. Let me see. We got our So going with the sorry. I'm trying to figure out where we were at. Yes, rest in peace, Duncan Idaho. I've got his skull. There we go. I was just very quickly before we get on with it, I think it's a great little bit of writing. In all honesty, I did find it very, very funny. And maybe because it's to make light of this. I mean, we get 2 deaths here in rapid succession. And very interesting, I thought that the goading, we talked about the previous chapter with Leto and Asan Tariq, the way he provoked him, kept the provocation up. That's kind of, I've written the same thing here: provocation number 1, provocation number 2, provocation number 3. But we got this lovely bit of writing from it was one of the 3 most deadly insults which could be directed at a Fremen. And then this was the 2nd most deadly insult, the one which had destroyed the original Jacurutu. And speaking without turning, delivered the 3rd insult. It's a pity he didn't build up the 3rd one as well. I thought that this was the 3rd insult that was. There's something that reminded me of Douglas Adams about it, that it was kind of comedic within the writing. Possibly a little bit inappropriate. I don't know. And of course, Duncan doesn't really mean these things either. That's the interesting thing. As we talk about provocation and insults, he doesn't mean these. He's probably done a mentat computation. This is the way I get, even though he's tired, I'm going, what's the easiest way for me to get this guy to kill me? And it's probably produced in his head. Call him these 3 things. Discuss his parentage. Call him a water thief. And so he piles on as well. Calls him a water thief, suggests you stab him in the back like a coward, and wears the collar of a demon. We get 6 full insults before the knife goes in. Draw your knife, mentat scum. It goes for a bit of physical violence while laughing. Maybe I was just thinking, is the writing a little bit comedic just to match the kind of almost delirious laughter? It's kind of almost mad, madness, a little kind of that kind of wild, beyond the wild world's end type laughter, if you know what I mean. Almost a kind of Tom O'Bedlam kind of thing. The incoherent screech, I think, is really good. I just thought it was very funny, and then we get it with this ends with this kind of this pathos, this kind of 2 deaths for the Atreides. Idaho Hust the 2nd for no better reason than the 1st. So I was just thinking, I don't know whether you find it funny or not. I thought it was a chunk of pathos basically to help you deal with the pathos of it all, basically. Give you. I don't. Writers tend to dump pathos after pathos, I think. 2 deaths for the Atreides, Idaho Hust the 2nd for no better reason than the 1st. I thought, well, the first time he died, trying to see, I suppose, buying Paul and Jessica time, didn't he? Really. It's for no better reason than the 1st. It's a similar thing, but it's also kind of pointless, isn't it? And the only thing I thought about was the whole thing about this chapter just felt a bit odd for me. I think it's the second time a character that we know has died as well, which is odd. When characters die more than once, it tends to take the sting out of their death, doesn't it? For very obvious reasons. But the other thing was I don't know. As I said, I think that's the way it's worked. He's done the computation. What's the best way, and he's gone for it, knowing Stilgar the way he does. At the same time, that thin veneer of being civilized, if you like, that we're told Stilgar has, I thought it was a bit easy. I thought that Stilgar would have been not so easy to beat, I think, like this. But at the other thing to remember is that both men are really tired here, dog tired. They've been up all night discussing this and arguing it, So I don't know. I found it very funny. Pardon me. And I shouldn't, but that's maybe just me. I don't know if you agree with me or not. Yeah, English insults are direct attack upon you. Spanish, they are largely directed at your mother. Carlos in Ireland, they can come in all shapes and forms. Really can. I think people would attack you for all sorts of reasons in this country. China said actually for prophecy to remain. Oh yes, we have that wee bit. Many years in the future, against Judaism's teaching history isn't scheduled to last that long in Judaism. It's on the clock. So this seems to me that we're watching Stilgar die here. Loss of his leadership of Sietch Tabr, loss of his veneer of civilization, loss of his vow of neutrality. It echoes the words that the Bene Gesserit implant. To clarify, I'm also reminded of the secret words that the Bene Gesserit implant in people to later control them. Maybe Jessica or another Reverend Mother implanted this response in Stilgar. That's a really good idea. I hadn't thought of that. Stilgar still chose the way of the knife. That's an interesting point, that perhaps, wow, the worst insults to a Fremen, these deadly insults that possibly within this is some sort of, is a coded Bene Gesserit, the veneer is, lost for Stilgar. You're right. He's losing control of the situation. He's so certain of his countenance. Again, possibly because of his relations to Alia and Ganima, that she wouldn't dare attack them here. Nobody would dare attack under my. And it also proves, Idaho's actions. That there's Javid walks in the door, dead. There you go. And I suppose as much as it's a killing of Javid works on a couple of different levels, because of the reason that you can't attack him on your neutral territory. No, but outside in the desert, you can't attack him here. But it's the reason that he's here. Javid's here in Tabr with messages from Ali. He's a messenger, and to kill a messenger is not a good thing. Yes, indeed. So against hospitality, against sanctuary, killing a messenger as well, and then the full provocation. It brings out it. How did you put it there, Cynthia? Maybe about Jessica or another Reverend Mother implanted this response and still got no prior to that. The loss of his veneer of civilization, the loss of his vow of neutrality, it echoes the words that the Bene Gesserit implant. All of these actions will cause, basically, we're about to see it, there's consequences for what he's done. And it's rage that makes him do this. And it dissolves into a sudden icy shock. You kind of feel sorry for Stilgar here again. He's been completely manipulated. I suppose our sympathies are with Duncan Idaho as well. And the guy that's shagging his wife is dead, and nobody's really bothered about that. But it's almost comical, almost hysterical, and a little descent into madness for both of the men. And Duncan's back to himself for his final words, even though he's got a knife in his heart. which I thought was a little bit unrealistic, but there you go. Yeah, and Stilgar's back to himself. Oddly enough, as Cynthia was saying, the loss of the veneer of civilized, he's back to being his good old Fremen self and no guilt. And I wonder, does he have? The interesting thing is Stilgar's guilt here. Does he have any? And I don't think he does. I think it's a moment of understanding, a moment of realization, if you like. Stilgar stared down past his dripping knife at the body of Idaho, took a deep, trembling breath. Javid lay dead behind him, and the consort of Alia, the womb of heaven, lay dead at Stilgar's own hands. It might be argued that a Naib had but protected the honour of his name, avenging the heart to his promised neutrality. But this dead man was Duncan Idaho. No matter the arguments available, no matter the extenuating circumstances, I told you to watch out for that, nothing could erase such an act. Even were Alia to approve privately, she would be forced to respond publicly in revenge. She was, after all, Fremen. To rule Fremen, she could be nothing else, not even to the smallest degree. This is strongly reminiscent of the Furies here, simply put, that in a matter of familial murder like this, that regardless of the person's attitudes, that they would be forced into revenge by the Furies, that they will plague you and harass you and just drive you mad until you do that. It's not quite the same, but the Furies here in this aspect of being forced to publicly respond in revenge, regardless of if she agreed with it or not. That's quite interesting. There's no way that I've just killed the regent's husband, the consort of Alia, the womb of heaven, and in a place of sanctuary and a place of neutrality. This is a problem. There's no matter the extenuating circumstances. It was a wee while back there. Just as I said, the sense of dramatic irony here within this chapter, I think, is good. There's all sorts of reasons for it to be a little bit funny. Where were we? Let me just see if I can find it. There we go. Perhaps this is the whole thing about whether we can bring Alia to trial. Stilgar's response: perhaps first we must find out if there are extenuating circumstances, a failure of authority, possibly, or even bad luck. It could be a case of that natural bad tendency which all humans share, and not possession at all. Well, poor old Stilgar, I think here you could call this in part bad luck from his point of view. Possibly a failure of leadership in his neutrality, again, as Cynthia was suggesting, Goodness gracious me. Oh, sorry, something walked past my view there. Let me see. Yeah, I didn't. Hang on. There's it sounds like a textual problem there. I just noticed. Let me catch up. Yeah, what Carlos is saying there, Cynthia, that's kind of what I was thinking. Supot says, still chose the way of the knife. Carlos says, Cynthia, or perhaps just a reversion to his pre-Atreides state as a wild Fremen name, kicking off the civilized. Yeah. Carlos said, Supot says, how does his third death benefit? Oh, God knows. I haven't got there yet. Supot been far too. I take it this is. Oh, here, hang on. I missed the comment, but I take it you mean Duncan Idaho's third death. Let me see. China says he died to save Paul. First time to save Gani. The second, 2 lives spent in service to the Atreides, in spite of first time. Sorry, he died to save Paul the first time. To save Gani, yes, the second time. 2 lives spent in service to the Atreides, in spite of Alia's possession. Idaho hasn't learned to live or die any differently, even as a mentat. That's it. He dies saving Paul here, buying them time. It's the same here. It gets them out of here, gives them time. It's Gani he's saving here. She's still here. Where's their death benefit? Right, let me just move on. Sorry. Carlos is saying, Chaya, that inflexible nature is probably what made him invaluable to the God Emperor. My text is avenging the threat to his promised neutrality. Ah, right. Something did sound wrong there. Where was that? What did I say? Was it heart? Wasn't it? I did say heart. Yes, indeed. You said heart rather than threat. It was heart in my book, I believe. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, there it is. 59, note 59. Bear with me. Thank you. As always, let's see. Let me just double check that. Avenging the heart to his promised. Yeah, I've got heart. Avenging the heart to his promised neutrality. It's avenging the threat. Yeah, heart didn't make sense at all there. Thanking you. Well, it is. Sorry, I'll find that in the book there. Yeah, I thought that was odd. Avenging the heart. The heart to his yeah, made no sense at all. Threat, thank you very much. Let's put TH in there, make that an R, make that an A, make that, there we go. Threat. Thank you, well spotted, Cynthia, that was a good one. Yes, indeed. Where was that then? So, Consort of Alia, the woman of heaven lay dead at Stilgar's own hands. It might be argued that Anaib had but protected the honor of his name, avenging the threat to his promised neutrality. Makes a lot more sense, doesn't it? But this dead man was Duncan Idaho. No matter the arguments available, no matter the extenuating circumstances, nothing could erase such an act. Even were Alia to approve privately, she would be forced to respond publicly in revenge. She was, after all, Fremen. To rule Fremen, she could be nothing else, not even to the smallest degree. As I said, I think very much reminds me of the Furies, that little bit, that statement there. You know, you've got no choice in your vengeance. It's part and parcel of what you have to do. Only then did it occur to Stilgar that this situation was precisely what Idaho had intended to buy with his second death. So I said Stilgar was resistant to the voice. A Bene Gesserit implant sounds tricky to pull off. No, I kind of think it's just exactly the right cultural insults. You know, the right slurs that are really cut to the heart of being a real Fremen, if you see it. I mean, that kind of thing. So Pot said, if I remember correctly, it's mentioned in books 5 or 6, Duncans are also a genetic baseline. Carlos said, genetically, Leto II probably had many choices. It was his character that set the Duncans apart. Yeah, I'm kind of curious to get into the other Duncans once we hit God Emperor. The hate goal is a very much a different one, isn't it, than all the others? We have our original, we have our hate Duncan Idaho too. Was that what you were saying, Souppot? Oh, you mentioned books. Duncans are a genetic baseline. I'm wondering, yeah. Kind of wondering where all the Duncans that the God Emperor gets come from. Is it from this one or from the original? You know, I'm curious. Initially, I mean, the first one. Who is Duncan Idaho 3, as you put it? Character that set Duncans apart. So yeah, it's suicide by Stilgar. I actually wrote here Stilgar's being a bit slow here, isn't he? Poor Stilgar. Stilgar looked up, saw the shocked face of Hera, his second wife, peering at him in an enclosing throng. Everywhere Stilgar turned, there were faces with identical expressions: shock and an understanding of consequences. Slowly, Stilgar drew himself erect, wiped the blade on his sleeve, and sheathed it. Speaking to the faces, his tone casual, he said, "Those who'll go with me should pack at once. Send men to summon worms." "Where will you go, Stilgar?" Hera asked. "Into the desert." "I will go with you," she said. "Of course you'll go with me. All of my wives will go with me. And Ganima. Get her, Hera. At once." "Yes, Stilgar. At once." She hesitated. "And Irulan, if she wishes." "Yes, husband." Still she hesitated. "You take Gani as hostage?" Hostage? He was genuinely startled by the thought. Woman! He touched Idaho's body softly with a toe. If this mentat was right, I'm Gani's only hope. And he remembered Leto's warning. Beware of Alia. You must take Gani and flee. There we go. What a great chapter. I really want to know what you think, guys. I'd love your opinion on, is it a funny chapter? Is the humor in it there to take the edge off? If you see me, I really want to know. Do you any of you find this as funny as I do? And I think it's there's like major events. It's quite sad, by the way, that Duncan's dead. I get all that, but it's just the in between I find quite funny. I said that sense of irony, the extenuating circumstances that no matter what he can think of, the insults. It's just the way they're described. Um, you know, and some good use of exclamation marks by Frank. I think there's nothing more enjoyable than shouting the word scum. I think it's a great scum, such a great word. You scum! It's it just has one of those. Just has a something. It's the way it sounds. It's just fun. Um, prepare to die, you scum. It's that kind of thing. I just find it very funny. But I honestly don't know if you. I'm just kind of curious if you found it as funny as I did. I genuinely found it quite funny. Um, if you'll excuse me a wee quick second, I'm going up to the loo very quickly. I need to blow my nose. I'll be right back. Bear with me. I think the microphone thing. Hello. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. God, I don't know if a couple of episodes back, in case any of you didn't notice, something quite odd happened. Was I started talking and realised that my microphone wasn't on. I went, oh, and turned my microphone on and did the program. And it had picked up everything that I had said before I turned the microphone on. I don't know if you thought that was a bit weird or not, but I don't know what happened there. That was interesting. Let me just catch up with your comments, folks. Let's see, where did we get to? Yeah, I'd have to check out that third death suit pot, by the way. I don't recall it. Yeah, looking forward to getting to the Duncans. Choices. There we go. So in this book, we get to see Fremen culture on the autopsy table. And then Carlos saying, sorry guys, duty calls. It's been fun. See you all next week. All the very best. Carlos, take care. There's Christopher Crowley. Hi, Christopher. How you doing? Bojack saying, I definitely didn't see the humour till you pointed it out, but it did make me giggle a little. Okay. Thank you, Bojack. That makes me feel better. Let me just, there we go. Chirivka says, mine says, and he remembered then Leto's warning. You skipped the then. Oh, we've had some problems with the text in this one. Let me just check. That's right at the very end, isn't it? And he remembered. What did I say? And he remembered. You've got, mine says he remembered then Leto's warning. You skipped the then. I don't think I've got a then. No, in this case I do. This is actually, yeah, it's my mistake. There we go, for once. This has been quite a nice one, Chai. Almost all the mistakes have not been mine for an occasion. Thank you. And he remembered then Leto's warning. I have missed them. Let me just put that in. Thank you very much. It's good to be thorough. Leto's warning. Beware of Alia. You must take Gani and flee. Thank you very much. Well spotted. And try to say good night, Carlos, and all the best, Carlos. Take it easy. Christopher saying, I understand Duncan's choice is in his end as smart, detached as a mentat that he was still a macho man, which leads to a bit of a culture shock when we think of him on the Xerox machine too long. Unfortunately, I think I would have gone the way of Duncan too, given his choices in this book. Yeah, it's. I suppose as it bureaucracy has failed him, as it the immobility of Stilgar and his honor and his sanctuary and his countenance, is it that because there's no way around it, because it is an extreme thing to give your life for something or someone. If it's possible that the computations, we're also talking about a character who's died before, who remembers dying. As I said, it changes everything as far as I'm concerned. As much as it's a part of these books, I'm never very unless it's something like Sherlock Holmes, where he wasn't really dead, that kind of thing. I don't like characters coming back from the dead. I have a real problem with it, to be honest with you. It's part and parcel of Dune, the Dune series. It's a part and parcel of some other science fiction series, and I think it's become a bit of a problem for some science fiction series in particular. That sort of stuff kind of ruined the Night's Dawn trilogy for me, if I can remember it correctly. Apart from the outrageous Deus Ex Machinas at the end. But yeah, I'm not a fan of the dead getting up and down and around. And particularly with what we've had with Frank talk about characters like the Baron and Duncan Idaho, and bringing characters like this back, it in some ways diminishes them, if you see what I mean. and it certainly would takes the impact of their deaths away. And therefore a character who potentially that death has not much meaning for. Um, I don't know. It changes things. I always think it's curious that we have, all of Dune begins with way back with Pardo Kynes in our prologue, which is actually the epilogue of Dune, and we have that Oliet, who Liet Kynes is named for. This guy falling on his knife, for what seems to be a sort of religious reason. And I sort of commented at one point, I think that people wouldn't sell their lives that cheaply. Some people do, to be honest with you. I think even around the time someone in Northern Ireland, I think, had made the papers by offering to die for her country. When it was when nobody needed it or required it or requested it. Um, hmm. So I don't know. I personally would always seek a solution that wouldn't involve. If it was me trying to solve a problem, like how do I get a message to Lady Jessica, I would try and find every single solution that doesn't involve me getting killed. To be honest with you, but he's a hard sort of character to put a finger on at this point. Hate Duncan Idaho with the metallic eyes. He really is, and of course he is. I suppose his wife, is screwing around on him. The admission earlier in the book that Alia is basically like an ersatz substitute for Jessica, was quite an insightful one, I think. Jessica knows it. He knows it. Basically, it is the only person that doesn't know it. It seems is Alia out of that trio. I don't know. Christopher said it took him a bunch of incarnations to learn emotional intelligence. It's very zen. Would you like to know something, Christopher? I might have told you this before, but the main reason that my wife married me is those two words. She said I had a lot of emotional intelligence. But that apparently is one of my character traits. Christopher Crowley, very zen. Yes, indeed. Did China? By the way, folks, I have my throat is gone a wee bit. By the way, so I had planned to do this. The only the thing I'm going to do a separate. I might pop on tomorrow and do this actually, or do it tomorrow during the day. Keep a wee just to read this as a wee extra bonus. Pardon me, but I'm not going to do it tonight because my throat is going a bit on me. Not that I've been smoking too much. I'm still one half of a cigarette through here. But we'll keep going with a wee natter, but oh goodness gracious, something's going on with my computer. But I will actually, we'll do this the next time, but for sure. Sorry about that. It's just that there's a good bit of it to read, and I didn't think it fitted well with this chapter. I should have read it the last time, but we'll have a wee kind of natter about Lord Raglan the next time. Actually, I'm going to get me honey in here. Oh, we've got some, but no. Bear with me a wee second. Pardon me, excuse me, folks. We'll see if that helps. Oh, I'll tell you what I will do tonight very quickly is I will read you the bit on the Ring of Gyges from last week that I couldn't find. I've got that in my Plato. Something as well as kind of looking for can't find the trees because you're looking for the forest. But we can have a wee quick look. In fact, what the hell? We'll see how we do, actually. We'll see how we do. Let me just have a wee quick nosy. The basis of history. I'd rather put it all together. But we'll have a wee quick read at the Plato bit first, I suppose. Pardon me. Yeah, no, we'll keep it we'll do Plato and we'll keep the hero for next time. Know your limitations, Russell. Did Duncan know for sure that Paul was the preacher? Did Duncan know for sure that Paul was the preacher when he died. I wonder if it would have changed the mentat math had he been sure his Paul still lived. I think he's pretty certain. I think the general, as most people think, and I think he would have done the computations. Um, I think would he have for sure? I don't know, China, absolute certainty, but I think he would have, 99%. I would say. Um, would it have changed the mentat math had he been sure his Paul still is? I don't know. I've kind of got the sense that what we've got here, as much as we've got people changing skins and stuff like that, both with Duncan Idaho here at this point and with Gurney, we get the sense that they're old retainers. They're these men who should be heroes in their own right are almost in a sense casting off their Atreides skin, but at the same time they're not. As I said, he does this he dies here for Ganima, and probably for Stilgar and all of these people here. There was another thing, by the way, that we had a wee while back, was that this Duncan had a moment that was pretty much as close to prescience as you could get. So the question, I don't know if you remember that. That was to do with, remember the net, I think, as well. Will be a different notebook. And I'm kind of wondering that what the way Duncan's behaved in this chapter is almost in a kind of funny way a mirror to what happened in the previous chapter, baiting Stilgar, killing, sacrifice, a sacrifice of Javid so he can get things moving. If you see what I mean, and the provocations, the three deadly insults, he doubles up on it. And of course, it does get things moving. It basically gets Sietch Tabr on the go, doesn't it? They're not static; they're active, they're vital, and Stilgar's, a man of action again. As his veneer of civilization, his veneer of bureaucracy has been stripped easily with some very simple insults, And again, the insults are pretty much, and the murder of Javid as well. And I think even with the killing of Javid, the point where you've defiled my honor, this is neutral. I think things are totally repairable up until that point. So the question I'm kind of wondering is this part of almost like a pseudo vision that Idaho's have, some kind of computation, etc., overlay, whatever. But he knows exactly what to do to get a given result. The two deaths for the Atreides as well, the second for no better reason than the first, that struck me as rather Shakespearean, if you like, just the feel of it. But it also, and again, I apologize for my sense of humor. I'm probably bringing in things here that I shouldn't, but it also reminded me of the sperm wheel from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's almost like oh no, not again, sort of thing. So as I said, I don't. It's maybe just the way I read it. I always overread the word. I always like to overemphasize the word scum. This kind of thing. But the insults. It's the narrator's asides there that made me giggle. I just laughed. I thought they were very funny. One of the three most deadly insults which could be directed at a Fremen. Stilgar's face went pale. At that point, you know the other two are coming. If you know what I mean, with the writing here, here comes number two directly on top. And again, the comment within the text, the second most deadly insult, the one which had destroyed the original Jack Urutu. This is an insult that destroyed a siege. That must be some insult. And then, of course, the third. If it was me, I would have matched that kind of language with the third most deadly insult. And as I said, he gets that. We double up. He doubles up on it with a few more insults about being a water thief. Stab me in the back, would you? And you wear the collar of a demon. Then laughing at him. Idaho laughed. Ha 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 ha. He cuffed Stilgar sharply. Ha ha ha. Left hand. Ha ha ha. Right. And gets him killed. Um, just the madness of it. There is a sense of madness about it, as well as a sort of kind of Tom O'Bedlam kind of thing. But yeah, I don't know, that kind of writing. I think it has a wee bit of Babel. I think it's meant to take the I don't know, take the tension down a wee bit. But I find it, maybe it's that kind of thing that you like, where you giggle at something that's shocking. Yeah. But I find it funny, and that's maybe I've just got a dark sense of humor, folks. China said, did Duncan know for sure that Paul was the preacher when he died? I wonder if it changed the mentat math. I'd been sure as Paul still lived. Yeah, I think he's pretty certain. Would it have changed his decisions? So I was wondering, is this part of the almost vision, maybe that Duncan's had, or just some sort of computation? So listen, I appreciate you linking Jessica's words to Gurney regarding how to uncivilize Stilgar to this scene. This strongly suggests that barrage as our origin, but cultural customs could be enough of an explanation. Yeah, that's the interesting thing. Is it's not as much as that. This is what Duncan does to Stilgar here. The advice, as you point out, Cynthia, way back is Jessica's advice to Gurney. I'd say if it's given to one retainer, possibly given to another. But yeah, and the Bene Gesserit know this about Stilgar. This is how anybody wants to sort Stilgar out. This is how you do it. No. Object Grieve, despite you talk a long time, hope you're well. How you doing, Object Grieve? Not too bad, thank you very much. For a change. I was hoping to do a wee bit more reading. Souppot says, gotta go, guys. Great stream. Thank you very much, Souppot. I was going to do a bit more from the hero, but my throat's been a wee bit tonight, so I've got to get this read to everybody. I'm going to do a wee separate thing for it. Possibly might do it tomorrow night. Tomorrow's Friday, isn't it? Could do a wee extra episode just to fit it in, because it's the reason why we were saying about it, folks, is just I thought that it's quite important to understanding Frank Herbert's, even very much the plot structure actually of this book, but some of the thinking within this book. It's really important to the Dune series. A lot of it has been mentioned, particularly the ritual and the myth and ritual within this text, and I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but just a couple of chapters of it, which will take probably about half an hour or so, I think. But particularly we're going to look at, I think, Raglan's chapter on the basis of history, see how he looks at the genesis of myth, and then myth and ritual in particular. And then there's the one chapter which is actually the hero that is the complete overlay. It's always the picture I open up. In fact, that's it there. You want to pretty much get the entire plot of Dune, right through to Dune Messiah and Children of Dune. You've got those 22 steps. Well, for Paul's character, anyway. There we go. And you could argue that Leto's tearing through them at the minute. And of course, it's based on Oedipus. And we have the Oedipal overlay on Paul. And we also have the overlay of Laius on the Baron, which I'm making a video about at the minute, writing it. So there we go. That's what I'm up to, folks. Very quickly, let me see if I can find this for you. God, my memory was being really shit with Plato. I haven't read Plato on Plato's Republic in the ages. So this is from part 1, book 2, the introduction to the Republic. The section Edemantus and Glaucon restate the case for injustice. It was just to give you the bit on the previous chapter, particularly the nature of the ring, the suggestion of Paul. Both of you wish we could both cast that thing away. Pardon me. So we'll do this as our bonus material for this episode, and we'll get so it's not too long. Through it in a couple of minutes. So this is from Plato's Republic. The best illustration of the liberty I'm talking about would be, sorry, I'll quickly run from the last bit there. Let me just check, just for a bit of context. This is the two men. Right, anyway. This then is the account they give of the nature and origins of justice. The next point is that men practice it against their will, and only because they are unable to do wrong. This we can most easily see if we imagine that a just man and an unjust man have each been given liberty to do what they like, and then follow them and see what their inclinations lead, where their inclinations lead them. We shall catch the just man red-handed in exactly the same pursuits as the unjust, led on by self-interest, the motive which all men naturally follow if they are not forcibly restrained by the law and made to respect each other's claims. The best illustration of the liberty I am talking about would be if we suppose them both to be possessed of the power which Gyges, the ancestor of Gyges the Lydian, had in the story. He was a shepherd in the service of the then king of Lydia, and one day there was a great storm and an earthquake in the district where he was pasturing his flock, and a chasm opened in the earth. He was amazed at the sight, and descended into the chasm and saw many astonishing things there. Among them, so the story goes, a bronze horse, which was hollow and fitted with doors, through which he peeped and saw a corpse which seemed to be of more than human size. He took nothing from it save a gold ring it had on its finger, and then made his way out. He was wearing this ring when he attended the usual meeting of shepherds, which reported monthly to the king on the state of his flocks. And as he was sitting there with the others, he happened to twist the bezel of the ring towards the inside of his hand. Thereupon he became invisible to his companions, and they began to refer to him as if he had left them. He was astonished and began fingering the ring again and turned the bezel outwards, whereupon he became visible again. When he saw this, he started experimenting with the ring to see if it really had this power, and found that every time he turned the bezel inwards, he became invisible, and when he turned it outwards, he became visible. Having made his discovery, he managed to get himself included in the party that was to report to the king, and when he arrived, seduced the queen, and with her help attacked and murdered the king and seized the throne. Imagine now that two such rings existed, and the just man put on one, the unjust the other. There is no one, it would commonly be supposed, who would have such iron strength of will as to stick to what is right and keep his hand from taking other people's property, for he would be able to steal from the market whatever he wanted without fear of detection, to go into any man's house and seduce anyone he liked, to murder or to release from prison anyone he felt inclined, and generally behave as if he had supernatural powers. And in all this, the just man would differ in no way from the unjust, but both would follow the same course. This, it would be claimed, is strong evidence that no man is just of his own free will, but only under compulsion, and that no man thinks justice pays him personally, since he will always do wrong when he gets the chance. Indeed, the supporter of this view will continue, men are right in thinking that injustice pays the individual better than justice. And if anyone who had the liberty of which we have been speaking neither wronged nor robbed his neighbour, men would think him a most miserable idiot, though of course they would pretend to admire him in public because of their own fear of being wronged. So much for that. I suppose the bit is we come to the decision between the two lives, etc. Who is more just, this kind of thing. No, well, come on, hang on. We should only be able to make this decision if we contrast extreme examples of just and unjust men. By that I mean if we make each of them perfect in his own line, and do not in any other way mitigate the injustice of the one or the justice of the other. To begin with, the unjust man, he must operate like a skilled professional. For example, a top-class pilot or doctor who know just what they can or can't do, or never attempt the impossible, or able to retrieve any errors they make. The unjust man must similarly, if he is to be thoroughly unjust, be able to avoid detection in his wrongdoing. For the man who is found out must be reckoned a poor specimen, and the most accomplished form of injustice is to seem just when you're not. So our perfectly unjust man must be perfect in his wickedness. He must be able to commit the greatest crimes perfectly, and at the same time get himself a reputation for the highest probity, while if he makes a mistake, he must be able to retrieve it, and if any of his wrongdoing comes to light, be ready with a convincing defense, or when force is needed, to be prepared to use force, relying on his own courage and energy, or making use of his friends or his wealth. Mm. So I suppose the just man, the unjust man, etc. But that's a little bit in relation to the ring of gauges from Plato's Republic. If anybody's not read Plato's Republic, don't be put off by its. It's. I think the biggest problem you'll ever have to deal with in reading anything like this is just some Greek names. If you're not used to them, just pronounce every letter and you're good. Pretty much 99% of the time. But yeah, it's not difficult. It's an interesting book. It covers all sorts of little topics, I'm a fan. Yeah, there we go. This weirdly, I've got a publisher's. One of these, I realised why I've got two editions. My old one's gone. I would have had the old black ones. The old Black Penguin Classics was my copy. I think this one's mine, and that one's my wife's. I think. But this look kind of like what you call publisher's edition. See that? It's a bit bigger. The writing's no bigger. It's just got better guttering on it. That's all. And it's almost like the smaller copy is easier to read. There you go. So there you go, folks. That was just a little bit on the Ring of Gauges, which I couldn't find last time. As I said, we're going to read you some stuff from the Hero, but I'm trying to protect my voice for the last few chapters so we can keep going. And I think I've got a couple of short chapters ahead. I'll do it next time. So sorry to keep promising it, but we will get there. It's all groovy once all the programs are up forever anyway. So there we go. But yeah, Super's got a really great stream. Thank Chad is saying good night all. Thanks Doc for another great chapter review. Thank you very much, Chad. Yes indeed, I'll simply saying thanks Doc and all. I shall wrap up for tonight, folks. It's been a long couple of days actually here, but a great wee chapter. Just to sort of conclude, I don't know, I think there's a lot of humor in it, and I don't know if it's. Maybe it's me as somebody was saying there. I didn't notice it until you pointed it out. I just from a writing point of view, I really enjoyed it, but it does have some humor in it, and I think it's a build up to a dramatic, fatal event. I think that kind of, I think it works really well. But and because we have Idaho grinning, right into Stilgar's rage, there's laughing with it. It seems right to me. As much as that's the behavior of the character, that humor, that kind of little bit of madness is almost matched within it, within the writing. I really enjoyed it. Of course, at the end of this, we've got two people dead: Javid, Alia's lover, and Duncan Idaho, also known as Hate, Alia's husband. Dear oh dear, things not going well for I suppose for Duncan, Javid, or for Alia really here. And Stilgar's in a bit of a bind as well, and he has to basically grab everybody and run. The other little thing I just thought very much at the end was interesting that Hara thought, is he taking her hostage here? And the thought would never occur to Stilgar, who's I think is the guardian of the twins as well. Leto's warning: beware of Alia. He remembered then Leto's warning: beware of Alia, you must take Gani and flee. Cracking chapter, folks. And I think absolute, just great fun, Joey Thompson says, so stoked for God, Emperor and Raglan. Thanks, Doc. See you all next time. Loved hearing Plato. Yeah, I couldn't find it for the life of me the last time. Yes, indeed. I can't wait to get this Lord Raglan thing read because it's been a few weeks, so we're trying to get it done, but it's happening next time, guaranteed. I think we'll get it. In fact, you know what? I think we'll get it out of the way first. I think I'll pop on tomorrow and do a wee separate program. Well, anyway, I've got a bit of time at the minute, so all is good. And I said we're doing a bit of scribbling, hoping to get some programs up real soon. Anyway, listen, folks, I'll let you head off. It's late. It's 11:30, and it's Thursday night. Weekend starts soon, I'm sure, for some of you. So I'll just say thank you very much. 2 chapters next time because they're real short, and we'll throw in Lord Rag. Oh, might be. What's the space? We might be on for a separate program, but either way, we're going to get that done. They're very short ones next time, so looking forward to that. We've got not much more to go, and I'm trying to figure out if I got enough pages in my notebook, volume 3, to get to the end of the book. And I don't think it's going to happen. I think I'm going to need another notebook. So Children of Dune is going to be a 4 notebook problem by the looks of it, folks. Anyway, there we go. Great fun as always. Great chapter. I hope you enjoyed it. And maybe some of you are seeing a bit of humour where maybe you haven't seen it before. I don't know. Either that, it's me. Listen, folks, I'll say good night. Thank you very much as always. Take it easy. Look after yourselves. And SYMP, I give you this much greeting. All the very best. We'll see you next time. Take care and good night. Bye bye.